Hey, welcome everybody. This is John Paul Mendoza, Dr. Speed Selling. This is Raging Verbalist number 172 for those of you keeping track. Hopefully you are. If you're new, welcome. Glad that you're here. Obviously, you're either on YouTube or Facebook. On YouTube, it is the standard routine of hit that like button, always helps out. Notification if you want to be annoyed. And of course, subscribe if you want to hear this every single week or whenever we put these up, usually every week. Also, we're on a Facebook group, which is Position to Win Book group. And you can always ask questions that way, and we'll go from there. Now, for those of you who are regular viewers, you know that one thing happened last week, which has not happened often. And I don't think it's ever happened. Maybe it has, but we had our ever lovely co-host, Sandra, who was down with some COVID. She has now kind of crawled back out of that hole somewhat and shows up. And so Sandra, welcome. Hopefully you can make it through. We have to have a cough switch because she is wheezing and coughing. She does have a very nice Kleenex box close by, so she should be able to make it. So welcome, Sandra.
Hello. I am here. Excuse my coughing every once in a while.
That's that Nebraska spirit playing through the pain, making it happen. So
that's right.
Okay. Right. Well, Sandra, what are we talking about today? What is on the agenda?
All right. So we're talking about subterranean homesick economic blues. So what do you mean by subterranean homesick economic blues? Say it 10 times fast.
Yeah, that's a mouthful, right? That's one of those things that you give that to people when they say, well, I'm really very good at speaking. I'm just fluid. And you go, good, say this. And they go, no. Well, it's actually there's a Bob Dylan song from way back called Subterranean Homesick Blues. And I was always fascinated by that song. By the way, it's a 4-verse song for those of you who want to explore it further. And Dylan jammed into this song and it's a short song, it's like 2 minutes or something. And he just rolls. And you can actually even understand Bob saying the words, which, he is a guy who, as he got older, was a slur. And I know, hey, if you're a Dylan fan, I'm a Dylan fan, so I can say that. But anyway, what I really mean by that is subterranean means that there's a lot of things going on under the surface of our economy, of the economics situation around the world. And in some ways, people don't really even talk about it. They talk about it a little bit, but then it goes away. And then, it pops up a little bit more and then it goes away. Everyone is hoping that we're going to have the new normal or it's going to be okay. Just a few months ago, it was in the fall. We get to the spring. By the way, we're at the spring. Everything's going to be good. Tickety-boo. Interest rates are going to come down. Well, opposite is going on. Now there's discussion that it's going to take place in the fall. So we kicked the can down the road 6 months. So that's why it was important today to go talking about some of these things to make you aware of them. And and also just make sure that you're not, kidding yourself. So that's why we're talking about this topic in this way.
All right. Can you give me an example of something that has changed recently that has made this such a hot topic?
I have one bank in particular, Silicon Valley Bank. They had a run. People started taking billions of dollars out of it. This is the first time we've had a bank run in the internet age, if you will, or maybe the hyper social media time, because people just rushed down there to pull money out of there. And they went from the coolest, wokest, neatest bank, solid, they're backing all kinds of companies. I think Roku had $480 million in the bank. Geez, hey, go down to the ATM and take our money out. But you're going to be standing by the machine a long time while it's spitting it out. But that was an example of something that was not something we were looking out for. By the way, all the stress testers that were put in after the Great Recession, which really are good because, now we have better quality of not equity, of assets and all of that. All of that's great. However, what happened is that these people went out and bought treasuries. If you're a bond person, if you're not a bond person, you should understand that we are all driven by the bond market. A year ago, 2 years ago, bonds were like almost zero. So when these banks were encouraged by the Federal Reserve, by the Department of Treasury, hey, buy bonds, support this. These are solid, great assets. You're all good. Now, the problem is that you deal with this thing called the maturity problem. And the maturity problem is the farther out the bonds go, the more volatile they are against interest rates. And interest rates have been chugging along, going up, going up, going up, going up. Some argue that they've gone up too quickly. Some of my some of my Fed bears that I know have said this is ridiculous. They've gone up minuscule amounts because the economy, if you look at true real interest rates, we're still way below real interest rates. But let's just face it, if you did all of that, if you ripped off that Band-Aid, you would see, mass dislocation. And so they're trying to navigate a soft landing. And as the saying goes, I don't necessarily want them to be flying my plane because I don't want a hard or a soft landing. I want a smooth landing. So maybe we should go with that. So Silicon Valley Bank is just I think a canary in a coal mine. And I don't think it's going to be the last one. Now, they can do lots of things, but it's out there. So be well aware of what's going on in the marketplace.
And some are talking about eliminating small and regional banks. So what's your take?
Terrible idea. Every person I've seen who's talking about that, talking heads on cable news, those on the internet. The problem that I have with elimination of small and regional banks is that small and regional banks help small businesses. And I'm not talking about businesses that are funded by VCs. I'm not talking about people who have, sitting on a big bank of dough and all of this other stuff. I'm talking about not the top 1,000 businesses or even the top 5,000 businesses. I'm talking about everybody below that. If you, in fact, eliminate small regional banks, which we lost a lot of them during the Great Recession, if all of those went away and we had a system similar to Canada, and yes, I'm giving a shot at Canada here, you got 5 or 7 banks and you walked in and they looked at you and said, well, you're not bankable. All the other banks would probably say the same thing. So what are you going to do? What happens to entrepreneurs? The last thing we want to do is have monolithic banking like they have in other parts of the world, because that means that small entrepreneurs are going to have a really tough time getting out there. And if you want to see the economy implode over a period of time, just eliminate those banks. I mean, all I can tell you is I do business with small banks and huge banks. Huge banks are totally a pain in the ass. You would be amazed at the crap they put you through. And as I said before, 50 years ago, it was easier for me to go get a bank account than it is today. Try to go get a business account today, and just the whack of paperwork that you have to show up with, and the amount of time and energy. We just did an acquisition recently, and it took us 3 trips to the bank. And I think we kind of know what we're doing, but it's, unbelievably painful to try to get this stuff done.
So how will this affect small and medium businesses?
Well, if you can't do banking, then what you're stuck with, and this is why, little jog to another spot, is that when I was interested in the cannabis business, did a small investment. Yes, I lost my money. But I can tell you, one of the problems was banking. You couldn't get banking. Banking wasn't really possible. And that meant that you were really thrown in with sharks. And by being thrown in with sharks, that meant that you were always going to be struggling to get stuff done. I mean, who wants to pay these outrageous fees? Can you live with that? What happens to your margins? What happens to your safety? What happens to those types of things? So I think small and medium businesses would be affected greatly. The other thing is that if you can't know your banker, if everything is based upon going in and they say, and if you want proof of this, go to any major bank, sit in the lobby, watch how many people show up with a raft of paperwork. They've got a problem. And what do? Is they say, well, we can't help you here. call the call center, and God knows what you're going to get from there. Lots of luck. It is going to be a lot of pain and agony. So I think it's going to affect small and medium businesses, and I am vehemently, adamantly opposed to elimination of these small and medium banks. We got to figure out how to keep them going because they serve a very vital purpose in establishing new and better businesses. Now, if you're thinking about establishing a business, then there's something that you really should do before you even think about needing a bank and needing some of those things. And that is, you should take the time, take the energy, take yourself and go out and do this. Pick up this book. This is my book. Most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. It just takes them 3 to 5 years to realize it, position to win. When you make a mistake right up front, it's going to be a period of time before it comes to fruition and kicks you in the ass, which is why you go out, you get this at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Books A Million. You can get a physical copy. They will order it for you if you want, or you can go to Amazon and order it, or you can go get it digitally at get a Kindle, get a Nook, get an Apple iBook. Also, while you're there, you may want to pick up a book that we wrote, which is Remote Work for a Better World, and go check that out. And of course, if you're a hot drinker, coffee drinker for me, all coffee tastes better, of course. Every beverage tastes just a little bit brighter, a little bit better. And maybe it'll make you a Raging Verbalist with a Raging Verbalist mug. Go to positiontowinbook.com, positiontowinbook.com. Go check it out. Some free stuff for those of you who want to go and swipe some things and see what you can figure out and do all of that. And away we go. All right, Sandra, what's next?
All right. So a while ago, you said you thought that oil would be well over $100 a barrel. Do you stand by that?
Well, whenever we're going to do predictions, I need to put on the rose-colored glasses so I can put on the predictors and see into the future. Well, what happened, and this was what was driving me to do that, is that I track oil prices. Yes, I do have some investments in them. None of the majors, but I do play in the oil space. And I saw the fact that they were draining, the OPEC plus crowd were draining the amount of barrels a day that they were going to sell. Well, they've taken another step and they're taking another 1 million barrels out. It is in I'm talking about OPEC's best interest to drive prices up to 70, 80. Right now we're at $80 a barrel, but they do not want to get it under $70 a barrel. So they're going to try to drive it to $100. I stand by it. I think we're going to, if we see an uptick in any kind of economic activity, especially over the summer months, we will see oil go up to $100 a barrel. So I'm sticking with it, and we'll see if I'm right or wrong. Again, the way the markets work is that you're either following the market and you're right, or you're wrong. Right now, my bets are looking okay, not great, but they are hanging in there pretty tight. So yes, I still stand by. We're going to see $100 before we're going to see $50. And part of it is the U.S. has shut down drilling, has shut down exploration, has shut down pipelines, cut the number of refineries. Only one thing happens when you constrain supply, prices go up, and there is no way around that.
Right. So how are things looking on the inflation front and this transitory thing?
Well, we are approaching what is affectionately called stagflation, which is that we have stagnation in growth and we still have inflation. If inflation continues at the rate that it is now, and it has abated somewhat, people say, well, there you go, things are working. I don't think that's the case. All you have to do is look at a variety of commodities. Usually when they say things have gotten better is they take out energy and they take out food. Well, okay, I guess we could do that, but I'm going to tell you right now that energy and food are both up. You go in and you go to buy some food at a supermarket. People are making lots of decisions. I was in a Walmart, which has got to be one of the best ways to go check this out. And these two women were in front of me, each had their own cart. Both were sticker shocked by how much it was going to cost them, and they were making choices and decisions about that. So I think that this is not a transitory thing. In fact, I did an interview back in 2021, I believe, and at the Freedom Fest, and there was a and we should probably post a link to who I talked to. But he was scoffing at the idea that it was transitory. And here we are now, a couple years down the road, and inflation continues to roar on. Inflation is a tax on everyone. Inflation is a tax on everyone. And I think it's going to continue. It's not transitory. And unless they get some kind of handle on the overspending and overprinting and all of that, we're going to see inflation keep going. And right now, there's a sense that we have it under control, but this seems like it's an uneasy control, to say the least.
Right. And there seems to be an acceleration in layoffs.
Welcome to the new social media. I say internet, but maybe I'm dating myself. It's social media time. Previously, if you were going to lay people off, there was this process that you went through, and it was a slow process. And you said, well, we can't lay off these people. We can't lay off those people. But now we see companies come out and lay off thousands and thousands of people. Now, when that happens, when those rocks get tossed into the pond, the ripples go out over a period of time. And what we're going to see is somebody who gets laid off, especially people from high-tech companies that were getting paid very good money, and they get knocked off of that, they're going to find out that this overabundance of jobs may dry up faster than you can imagine. Now, there's opportunities out there. That means if you're a small business or medium business, you've had a hard time filling a slot or getting somebody to work at your budgetary level, this may open a bunch of things up. But I'm going to tell you, these accelerations and layoffs is probably going to keep happening. And these high-tech businesses that were having Zen rooms and all of these other cool things, nothing wrong with those, but that stuff starts getting thrown over the side when the world gets a little bit tougher. And this is just an understanding that the world is going to get tougher, and we're going to see these things start to continue to happen, but we'll see them cumulatively alter and change what's going on in the economy. And somewhere down the road, we'll be talking about it again.
Right. And what are the things you can do if you're in business to weather these trends?
So if you're sitting there right now in business, one of the things you really need to be paying very close attention to is the health of your customer base. If your customer base is on that edge, on that precipice, and they're going to go through some pretty tough times, you just better make sure that you're thinking this thing through. I heard an astonishing thing. I have no way to know if this is absolutely correct or not. But like Wells Fargo had a very big mortgage department, and because mortgages, refis are gone, done. In fact, it's funny. I got a piece in the mail, and they said, well, if you want to talk about refining your property, give us a shout. Now, the thing is that when rates were going down, those made sense, right? I could take my whatever percent loan, I could trade it down to a cheaper loan, away I go. No, it's going up. It's gone the wrong way. So the amount of refis have collapsed. And that means now, since people have a lot of cheap money or low interest rate loans that they can hang on to, that means that their cost of hanging on to properties is much better than it was before, which is probably why real estate hasn't collapsed the way some people have predicted. But I can tell you that if you're a small to medium business, if you're trying to figure out what's going on, start keeping track of the health of your customers and seeing what they're buying. You may need to change your offering. You may need to reduce what's going on because this is a reality of what's taking place. A couple of businesses that I'm involved in, market has dried up. Prices have plummeted. And luckily, we are in a no debt situation. And of course, we are hunkered down and we're going to walk our way through this. But we're in a desert. We're not kind of in a desert. We're not approaching it. We are in it. So if you are there, understand your marketplace. And I wouldn't say I would say the macro of your market, but also the micro pieces of your market. And the better you can understand that, the more likely it is that you can take advantage of it. And then the next thing is once you get over that traumatized point, because whenever you go through these, there's a traumatized point, is you have to ask yourself, how do I take advantage of that? How would I hire some of the best people that I couldn't hire before? How do I build a business that's going to be different? How many of my competitors will be going out of business? And also, does that mean that some of my competitors who are going to be going out of business are going to be selling their business, and therefore I can buy them on the cheap? Those are some of the things that you can do. The most important thing you have to understand, and the reason why I called it subterranean, is that there's a lot of suppression of this information. And the suppression is that there's a lot of, it's really not that bad. Everything is going to be okay. We're going to make it through, and it's all going to go back to a, dot, dot, dot. I do not believe we're going to see interest rates go back down to zero. I do not believe that we're going to see inflation go down to 1-2% again, and all of that is not going to happen. So adjust your sights, adjust what you're doing, and more importantly, make sure that you're in a defensible position. Last point is, if you're not in a defensible position as a business, you will in all likelihood become a casualty. I have done lots of turnaround work, and I can tell you that turnarounds happen because businesses become vulnerable, and once they become vulnerable and are weakened, then they in fact get destroyed by the market. We are going to hit a very competitive time, because as the economy tightens, as things go on, you're either going to be able to survive this and make it through, or in fact, what you're going to do is you're going to be yet another statistic of a business that didn't make it. And with that, I want to thank, for myself and the ever lovely Sandra, who is on the mend, I want to thank you for joining us on the Raging Verbalist number 172. Keep the faith. Don't let the bastards get you down. And most importantly, make sure that you take advantage of every opportunity you possibly can, because today is the only day that you have.